What is going on, everybody? This is Wakeman, joined by Toxic. What's going on, Toxic?
Yo, it's going good. It's going good. I'm ready to do these PRs, bro. I'm
All
ready.
right. So yeah, we're gonna be going over the Basculegion Division PRs um, for season 5 of the GLDL. Um, we're gonna start. So we're gonna just go through these in order, and I have a little ranking here, and we're just gonna slide them in order. I just figured this would be kind of a um, better conversational way to do it instead of averaging rankings that we make beforehand. So we're gonna start with M Boss's team here. Um, he's already played a week, but we're not gonna look at that necessarily.
We're just judging the teams, nothing about the players.
Yes. So that being said, M Boss was the first pick, and he has Raging Bolt, Glastrier, Feraligatr, Galarian Slowking, Paldean Tauros, Berserker, Thwackey, Palisand, Volcarona, Iron Jugulus, and Coughing. So I think that the strength of this team is the value. Almost every single one of these picks can be brought almost every week, except for the two tier sixes in Palisand and Coughing. I think literally everything else is very, very bringable every week. So I think that's really good. Um, I think that the type cores here, like Volcarona, Feraligatr, Thwackey, feels like a pretty solid Firewater Grass core. You don't have a fairy type, but I think that's not the worst thing, um, given that you have Glastrier and Raging Bolt to hit dragons. And Galarian Slowking is a really great answer to fighting types. So like you cover the things that you want fairy to normally cover. So I think it's cool. Um, I think that um, overall, like the damage output here is great. I think that the setup potential here between Feraligatr, Raging Bolt, and Volcarona is really good. There's a lot of things that can set up here. And Iron Jugulus, I think in my opinion, kind of ties it all together, as just being kind of a nice fast and speed control. Because I think one thing about this team is the speed tiers are not phenomenal. They're not terrible because Iron Jugulus does really help you on the fast end, and your slow end speed tiers are fine because you have two base 30s and a base 50 and a base 35, so you're cool there. Um, but I do think in general, the speed tiers could still be a little better naturally, but I do think it's okay. I guess my main issue with the team, if you could call it an issue, is it's not super cohesive to me. Um, MBOS is a very, I mean, we're not taking into account how the person plays, but I think generally MBOS does like to draft teams that aren't super like combo or mode heavy. But I almost wish there was a little bit more of a mode, and I also kind of wish there was a better Trick Room setter for Glastrier, because I don't know if Galarian Slowking can do it, but it does get chilly reception, which is a great option to set Trick Room and then pivot out into Glastrier to give it a defense boost. You want to say anything about this, Toxic?
I generally agree with most of the things you say. With the speed tier point, that's pretty much made up for almost entirely by Iron Jugulus being one of the better Tailwind setters this gen with booster speed. And even Volcarona, I mean, I doubt Volcarona ever sits Tailwind when there's an Iron Jugulus right there, but it's an option, right? And even on top of that, Mason probably has like some of the best priority in the entire division with a mixture of Raging Bolt and Thwackey. And for Alligator, which I'm pretty sure gets Aqua Jet, right? It's like,
We can find out. It
uh,
does. But I
yeah,
feel like
he
I
has,
and
he
I
has
feel like if you're not clicking liquidation with this mon, but it's a good option.
it's definitely a good option. Uh, I will say I do agree. I wish things were a bit more cohesive. Like I feel like there's just like a good mixture of a lot of good type cores and a lot of good mons, and that not to say that's a bad thing because this is a very well built team. There's a lot of good stuff here, but I feel like I wish there was like I don't know, like an earthquaker next to that iron jugulus. Well, I guess a stab earthquake next to that iron jugulus. For alligator or Tauros might get it for all I care. But like, some earthquake next to jugulus or like hmm, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I just wish jugulus had earthquake next to it since I generally see it drafted with that type of thing. But regardless, I think this team looks pretty good. I mean, I I'm not sure how well it would do against the other teams. This is a team I go kind of back and forth on, but it's generally very good. Uh,
Yeah, I think the main benefit that this team has is, like I said, the value is really good, but on like furthermore, like because of that, it just has a lot of stats. Like a lot of these mons just have good stats. Like you have between 137 special attack on Raging Bolt and 145 attack on Glastrier, you have more or less two of the strongest just raw attacking stats that you can even get.
oh, for sure.
So that's
Yeah.
like scary. And Raging Bolt is nice because Thunderclap doesn't care about speed control, but it has 75 speed tier, works great with Iron Jugulus Tailwind, and it can kind of do stuff under Trick Room because of Thunderclap. And I mean against fast teams too. But I guess the only gripe I have is I kind of wish there was a better Trick Room setter here because I've used Galarian Slowking, and in my experience, it's not as consistent as you'd want it to be. I wish, because that was in the same tier as Slowking, wasn't it?
What was Galarian Slowking? Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe
they
so.
were in the same tier, right? So like to me, and Slowking's undrafted. To me, I would much rather see
I can
Slowking here.
confirm. Yeah,
I would much rather see base Slowking here. I think that mon is infinitely better at getting Trick Room up. But then you have double water types. I get it. But I think that would be the main thing I might suggest. But do you have anything else to say with this one, Toxic?
there's one more thing I forgot to mention. The defensive synergy on this team is a bit questionable with your tier twos all being weak to rock, and then like you have Raging Bolt and Jugulus both being weak to fairy and stuff. Like, I'm not saying that's like horrible when we're like in a Terra era, as some may call it. You could change your typings and somehow resist rock or fairy. But I do think Mason might have trouble working that out since he
Yeah,
can't Terra absolutely everything.
yeah. I
But
think Quake.
outside of that, this game looks pretty solid, very strong. This this
Mhm.
is a very strong team to start off with.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I
that's all
think
I gotta say.
I think Quake slides really good into this team as well. Like, um, every you have one, two, three, four, five,
I
six
will say
mons that are
Thwacky
weak.
does exist for Quake.
I mean, yeah, but in general, Quake slide. When I say that, I'm talking like Earthquake is there, but like ground in general, like ground and rock, just hits
Yeah.
like most of this team. But again, you have good options for that. Just something I thought I'd point out. So
That's fair.
I'll throw Emboss in on top, and then we'll just throw teams in around his if it's better or worse.
For sure.
All right, moving on to Depiz's team. You want to start with this one, Toxic?
Yes, Depp is with second pick in the draft, and he has Walking With, Thunder T, Mamo, Hariyama, Jumpluff, Lycanroc Dusk, Rapska, Oinkalon Mail, Torkoal, Tinkaton, and Seviper. So right off the bat, the first thing I notice, holy special output, man. Like, I think this might have probably the best special output in like the division. Like, you have Walking Wake next to Torkoal, which in of itself makes your team like insane, has insane special output. I mean, Walking Wake under Sun is obviously a nuke, and Torkoal is as well. But then you add Thunder T on top of that, and you just have probably one of the strongest special cores that you could possibly get in like the new DLC. I'm gonna be honest. And with all that, he has he has a he has a very good trick room mode. I mean, Rapska. I hope he gets. I wish he would have gotten a better trick room setter than Rapska. I think Rapska's kind of mid as a mon, since it's a bug type trick room setter. But like, it's serviceable. It's a trick room setter, and you have jump bluff, so you could like rage powder next to it or something. So that could work. And you have Hariyama for that trick room mode too. So he has a very strong trick room mode, just like a pretty mid trick room setter. Uh, and then, if we're talking fast mode, jump bluff, Torkoal, I don't generally include Torkoal in fast modes, but like when you have something like jump bluff, I think Torkoal should be included in the fast mode, along with stuff like Walking Wake and Thundy T. That's just a very solid offensive backbone. And when most teams want to tear water against this team, Thunder's Therian is just going to be a pain in everybody's butt. On top of that, he has Mamoswine with that Thundy T, having a Disquake mode. That I'm pretty sure there's nothing that can resist what this Disquake mode throws out. Uh, I could be wrong on that, but Electric Flying plus Ground Ice is just disgusting. I don't think there's anything that can actually resist that. Mm, The most I could say that I wish this team had, like I said, I wish it had a better Trick Room setter. I think having a bug type Trick Room setter for Torkoal is pretty lame. But outside of that, I can't really think of anything in particular that like stands out to me that's like a pretty significant flaw with this team. Like he has very good fake out users for his Trick Room. He has a very good Rage Powder user. Extremely powerful
I
fast mode.
very good rage powder user is a interesting way to describe jump love.
I mean, it's not like bulky, but like I guess calling it very good wouldn't be.
I'm just a
I
little
I
bit of a
guess
hater. I'm just a hater. I'll be real.
it's not like the bulkiest rage powder user, but it's good. It's good. It's serviceable for what it is. I mean, you have pretty good. You have some of the best fake out in the game with Tinkaton and Hariyama, and then like you have a solid rage powder user. I mean, you can make Rapska work. I think Rapska is literally my only flaw, my only problem with this team. I think this team is extremely powerful. Uh,
Yeah, I think generally like I'm of the opinion that Torkoal teams in draft generally want Lilligant over Jumpluff, but I think he justified for me that Jumpluff pick a lot by getting Mamoswine and Thundy. Like those things definitely want Tailwind. Um, I think this is
Agreed.
another case where like other than Oinkalone and Seviper, which even then those both do their own thing here. You can bring every Mon here realistically. Like every Mon does something unique and every Mon does something very good here. The offensive coverage between Thundy, Walking Wake, Mamoswine is very complementary. Um, I agree. I think Rabska could be better. Could be a better Mon, but in tier 5, it's pretty solid. Like I don't think you get much better than that for this team in that tier. Um, but I agree. I think being weak to fire on a Sun team to set up Torkoal. But generally, I think you're probably gonna have Torkoal in the back when this happens, so should be okay. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think like this team just does a lot. Like there's a lot of item pressure from this team. Like you might want to run Umbrella for Walking Wake. You might want to run Goggles for Jump Pluff. You definitely want Covert Cloak into this team because it has two very consistent fake out users. AV looks great into this team, but the problem is you can only run all those things on one mon, and so it becomes really tough. I can envision it becoming really difficult to prep for this team in terms of item pressure. So I think that's really something this team has going for it. Um, do we think this team is better than M bosses?
Yes.
I'm leaning towards yes.
I also say that you mentioned item pressure. Terra pressure is so insane with this team. I mean, like, okay, Torkoal, I Terra Water. Actually, no, Thunder Styrian. I Terra Electric or Terra Steel. Oh wait, Mammal Swine. I can't tear around that. You can't tear around this team basically, and it really all just comes down to positioning against this team. But yeah, that's about all. I think
We
this team is probably better than Mason's.
I agree. We also forgot to mention the priority between like Ice Shard Mammo, Bullet Punch Hariyama, and Accelerock Lycanroc.
I mean,
That's pretty great.
Tinkaton, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, moving on to team number 3, we have Sunny Shore Staraptors, coached by Toby. He has Ursaluna Blood Moon, Farigiraf. Oh, yeah, we forgot to put the stats in for Ursaluna. Whoops. Volbeat, Inteleon, Alchemy, Alolan Golem, Haunter, Fracture, Ogerpon, Hearthflame, Scrafty, and Fortress. So, to me, right off the bat, this doesn't have the same strength as the last two, where I do think there's a lot of stuff here that looks like it's not gonna come very often at all. I really don't see. I mean, again, tier sixes are tier sixes, right? Like you have to take them. They're supposed to kind of be bad. I get it. Most of these teams do not have bring every week tier sixes. I probably none of them, because if a mon can come every week, it's probably not a tier six. But I do think that Fracture and Fortress are a little bit iffy here. Hunter is fine. Alolan Golem is fine. Alchemy's fine. I just think in general, the mid tiers here are a little bit weak for me, but it's made up for, in my opinion, by Farigiraf, Ursaluna, and Ogerpon. We just watched that on Charlotte Regionals barely lose finals. That core of 3. So like it puts in work, and that's great. And so I think that combo of 3 is going to be what's doing probably 75% of the work on this team. But that being said, I mean, you have Prankster, Tailwind, and Encore from Volbeat. You do have Inteleon. Does Volbeat get fake tears? I know one of them does. I don't know if they both do.
I'll look it up.
Illumizai, however the hell you say
Illumise.
Illumise. It's stupid either way.
Illumise.
Ugly ass bug. Anyway, I yeah, I mean, so this one doesn't get fake tears, but still, Inteleon's really strong. I think you have good Alchemy targets here, like Alchemy clicking Decorate into Ursaluna particularly, I think is
Oh
going to be really
God,
strong.
that's gonna be
Um,
devastating.
yeah, +2 Hyper Voices. Not many things want to take that. +2 Blood Moons might just like kill resists sometimes.
It
Um,
probably does.
so yeah, overall, I think the main thing I just think that the mid tiers here are a little bit weak. That's really my big issue with this. Um, and maybe, to me, no, never mind. I was gonna say I feel like the fast mode is very underdeveloped, but I don't think that's true necessarily. Like Volbeat, Inteleon, Ogerpon is fine. So, never mind. Sorry. You want to say anything about this one, Toxic?
I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, like you said, we literally just saw this work in not Charlotte. Oh my God, Charlotte regionals, and this is just such a strong core of Mons. I mean, Barcelona Bloodmoon for Farigiraf is just such an insane trigger mode. Farigiraf is already extremely hard. It's already extremely hard to stop Trick Room from this thing, but like you like bring like Scrafty with it with Intimidate and Fake Out and like Follow Me Ogerpon, and it's pretty much impossible for Ursaluna to not be under Trick Room and just start spamming blood. Well, it can't really spam Blood Moon a lot, but just start spamming normal moves, and you can't really do anything about it. Like I think the Trick Room mode is honestly about as good as you could get with Ursa Blood Moon. And then like you have like one of the better Tailwind setters since Volbeat has Pranks or Tailwind, and you probably won't be getting faked out since you'll probably be next to Farigiraf. I will say, I do kinda agree that I think the fast mode is a little underdeveloped, but it's serviceable. It's definitely serviceable since Ogerpon Heartflame is just probably one of the strongest attackers ever created.
Hmm.
And then you have Inteleon. Like, I think this team's damage output potential might be one of the highest in the division. Especially,
Yeah,
it's definitely like probably the highest we've seen so far. Like, this
yeah,
team has insane damage output potential.
yeah.
But
I think one thing is a lot of the offensive pieces here, mainly Ogerpon and Ursaluna, rely a lot on offensive Terras. Not that you can't defensive Terra on Ursaluna, you definitely can, but I do think that that Terra pressure might be a little bit of an issue in prep for Toby, perhaps. Definitely workable. You can definitely get around that, but yeah, I think this team is honestly a trick room first team with that fast mode as an option, secondary to that. Because like to me, I look at this team. The first thing I'm figuring out is how do I beat Fergraf Ursaluna, um,
well, like
especially
Scrafty.
right. And the nice thing is too, Fergraf functions really well as like an imprisoned mon next to Volbeat too, because you can set Tailwind and just go to town because you're not worried about fake out, which means you don't have to run cloak on Volbeat, which is great because it likes to have sash. Um, so it's almost guaranteed Tailwind. It's very hard to beat that, and then obviously Fergraf can also just do the slow mode thing with Trick Room. So I think that's really solid. I think Fergraf is going to be like carrying an insane amount of weight every week, but I think it's not too much for it. I think it can definitely handle that responsibility. Um,
Burgraff is definitely that guy.
yeah. Do we think, in my opinion, this goes below both Depis and Mboss?
I'd say I almost want to say it's better than Emboss, but it's kind of close for me.
I think the mid and low tier value that Mboss got puts it over Toby's for me.
That's fair. I just think this damage output is just something. It's something just above both of Depis and
Is it?
Emboss. But
I don't know that it is because like Walking Wake, Guts Hariyama, Thunderous T feels pretty
yeah, that's
comparable.
fair.
Plus
I
like
think it's pretty close.
Terrifier Torkoal Eruptions, and
I'd
then
say it's
on
pretty close.
yeah, I think they all have comparable damage output. I think it's very hard to draft a team that doesn't have broken damage output in this current format because everything just kills everything.
For sure. I think this team is definitely on the higher end so far. Like I'd say it's like Depis or Toby, and then like Emboss for damage output.
Yeah,
But no matter, uh, I low key put this above Emboss as of now. But I'm willing for that to change. Above Emboss and below Depis, I mean.
yeah, I'm still thinking it's below Mboss because I think I think the main thing is that value, man. Like Toby's team, there's a lot of stuff here that's mutually exclusive. Like if you're doing the Ursaluna thing, you're not gonna have you're not gonna the opponent's not gonna have to worry about Inteleon. Well, you know what I mean. Like in the game, right? You still have to prep for it and stuff. Um, Whereas like to me the cohesion, I mean I know I said there's not a ton of cohesion on Mboss's team. I meant in terms of like modes, but what I think Mboss's team does have going for it over Toby's is that it is everything can come and everything is compatible with everything. So I guess I guess my comments about it not being cohesive is not accurate. I guess I should be more specific and say it just doesn't have great modes. But
I'm following ranking Toby below Emboss.
okay, I think they're
I
very
I think
close.
I think the reason why we're having so much trouble with Emboss specifically is because a team like that is honestly one of the hardest you could ever rank, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I'm not good at judging teams like that, but I think having Toby below Emboss is fine.
Cool.
But I'll take this next one.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
so Kool Aid with the Lightspeed Emperors. He has Indeedee Female, Iron Crown, Illumise, Aquatoros, Salazzle, Vigavolt, Flygon, Poniard, Galarian Moltres, Conkeldurr, and Finizen. What a cool guy. Anyway, so right off the bat, I see a pretty insane psychic dark fighting core. I mean, like obviously, Psy Spam is really strong, and that's probably going to be like the main focus of this team. Like, if you're not bringing in DD, he brings in DD every week, and a lot of his team is going to be centered around that thing. But regardless, he has probably one of the strongest dark fighting psychic cores you could get. I mean, I think Indeedee Iron Crown is pretty much mutually exclusive. Not mutually exclusive, but like I generally include them when I'm talking about like psychic type stuff, since they're generally going to be together. But that's a very strong psychic type. Conkeldurr is a very strong fighting type. So is Tauros Aqua. We'll get to that. And Galarian Moltres is a very strong dark type. I think every mon on this team heavily appreciates Indeedee's presence, but that is kind of the problem I'm having here. Because like when I'm looking at this team, well, that's not the first thing I notice with this team, but like when I'm looking at this team, it feels like a lot of the mons on this team generally can't function without Indeedee. And I worry if Indeedee gets shut down easily, I feel like this team won't do very well. And that's kind of one of the issues I have with it. Mm. I think that's not to say that Indeedee Iron Crown isn't less strong, right? Or Indeedee Moltres. Like, that's still insane. Like, you still have to prep for, like, Nasty Bot next to Indeedee. Or expanding for spam. But I generally think that this team is going to have trouble once Indeedee is removed from the field. Or if Indeedee is just invalidated in general, you know? Outside of that, I feel like everything outside of like that, this psychic, outside of Psy Spam, Conkeldurr, and Galarian Moltres, isn't very great. I think Aquatoros is awesome, but I'm not sure how cohesive it is when you have a Conkeldurr right there. I mean, having a good water type is nice, but you're repeating your fighting type for pretty much no reason. I'm assuming he took it because he didn't have any other water type option, which might be true. But anyway, I don't think Aquatoros was the greatest pick you could have gotten here if you wanted like a really good water type. I think Illumise looks solid on this team, but I think it is going to be limited by the fact that your team highly depends on Indeedee. So Illumise might not even be worth the tier 3 slot. I mean, it sets Tailwind, but all the other stuff it generally likes to do with Prankster is pretty much stopped by your own Indeedee. Salazzle's strong for sure, but it's also kind of like Illumise where it can't really fake out under that psychic terrain. Um, Vigavolt is actually pretty good. This is probably one of my favorite low tier picks on the team because it rounds out the Trick Room mode with Conkeldurr and Indeedee. I think Vigavolt's a great pick. Um, But yeah, those are my general thoughts and issues with the team. I What are your thoughts, Wick?
Yeah, no, I agree with most of what you said. I think, yeah, there's a few picks here. So I think this is our first team with pretty much useless tier sixes. Um, like I'm sorry, like Poniard like does some stuff, but also like you're not bringing that. Like, come on, when are you bringing Poniard? Finizen and Finizen quite literally does nothing. Um, so I mean, unless I'm
Yo,
missing something. Hello,
Wick, I cannot hear you right now. Hold on.
can you hear me now? My mic is working. All right, fellas, we're back. Had some technical difficulties, but we're back.
Yeah.
So, I was just gonna look to make sure I'm not missing anything with Finizen, but like this mod does nothing, right? It gets
No, it's not
Haze
real.
and Helping Hand. and Charm and Rain Dance, so it doesn't really. I don't know. So I think that's a negative for it. Like the other teams didn't have great tier sixes, but they all definitely had use cases like Fortress and uh, Viper and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, I agree. I don't love the double fighting here. I don't think it's the worst, but I think in general the drafting around size spam here was honestly not that great. Like I think there's a lot of stuff that a size spam team wants that this team doesn't have. Um, Namely,
Yeah.
like I really, really wish this team had a good fairy type. Um,
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yo, wait. It doesn't even have a great fairy
yeah,
type.
and I mean you do have two fighting types to hit dark types, so and you have Galarian Moltres to resist dark moves, but like you need great dark answers on a team like this. And in my opinion, the double fighting types that both mega drop to a non-stab terrain boosted psychic because their Spadef is ass don't cut it for me, especially when Kinkelder's main thing is I want to click Mach Punch, and you can't do that here. Well, sorry, you can do that here, but not when your psychic terrain is up. So that is a kind of a caveat to me. I'm not as concerned as you are about Illumise and Salazzle on psychic terrain. I think that's fine. Um,
Lasso was less of a concern for me because it does get acid spray, so that's good. But
yeah,
Illumise was definitely one I'm definitely concerned about.
yeah. I just don't know how much this team wants to set Tailwind, and I also think I honestly just straight up do not like Galarian Moltres here. Um,
I Why not? Kind of see the vision. I mean, I don't think it's like fantastic. I think you could have picked something better. But I think Nasty Plot next to Indeedee and stuff.
oh, I
Like
think
maybe I'm thinking back in like the Dynamax era when that was extremely strong
no,
or something.
I still think that's very strong. My issue is that it's just like I don't think it adds anything too specific here that like I feel like it
Yeah,
just
because you
makes
just
your
bring
team
Snarl
so
anyway.
yeah, you just bring Snarl. That's exactly what I was about to say. Like it beats Vikavolt, it beats Indeedee, it beats Iron Crown, it beats Kinkelder. Your Defiant Mon to answer that is a Poniard, which is useless.
Ponder
So
isn't real.
yeah, this is a classic example of me of almost like a min-maxed kind of team where like the strong is really strong, but outside of that it's kind of like I'm just really not convinced. Um,
Yeah,
I also think Indeedee might be, as much as I hate to say it because Indeedee female is that guy or that girl, I guess. The mon is broken. I I almost wonder if it's trying to do too much on this team.
that's what
Um,
I'm thinking. I think this team relies too much on it, and if it gets shut down, this team won't have any legs to stand on.
yeah, because like realistically, right? You want it to set Trick Room to make Kinkelder and Vikavolt do stuff. You want it to be clicking Follow Me so you don't lose your Iron Crown because Iron Crown's bulk is good, but it's still like not outside of that range where it can't get OHKO'd by stuff. Like it can still get hit pretty hard by stuff. Um, so like you want redirection for that. You want, like sometimes you'll want helping hand. You obviously. I just think it relies on Indeedee a little much for my liking. Do you have anything else to say on this one, Toxic?
Nope, I think I yapped enough.
Are we putting this below Toby?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm with
that's
you
what
on
I'm
that.
thinking.
It's good. It's not a bad team, and I
There's no
should have.
bad teams in this division.
Yeah, I probably should have prefaced. Um, I probably should have prefaced the video with this. This this draft was just like everyone got broken stuff. There's no bad teams here. So if your team gets ranked literally 14th, your team is still very good. It's just not as good as what everyone else got. Um,
Yeah.
all right, so now we're on to Yeet's team, and I will start with this
Yeah.
one.
I like
So
this team. I like what he cooked.
So he's got Ensign, P2, Rhyperior, Azelf, Serena, Ribombi, Electros, Swalot, Primarina, Dragapult, and Luminion. So this team, in my opinion, is really, really good. Um, I I like the Ensign P2 here. Like that's very, very consistent Trick Room because what are you hitting P2 with 90% of the time? Close combat. And what makes it so you don't die to a close combat? Intimidate. So that's great. Um, especially when like a mon like a fighting type mon isn't gonna really be able to hold unless it's an inner focus mon that I can't think of. Like a fighting type mon that can threaten an Oko on P2, you can't hold cloak and clear amulet at once, right? So like you're either getting intimidated and not getting faked out, but then your CC doesn't kill, or you're getting faked out. You're not getting intimidated, but you're getting faked out, and then Yeet still gets trick room up, right? So I think that's real good. Um, I like the Azelf just kind of as a fast I'm gonna punch you type of mon. Same with Dragapult. I think like the offensive pieces here are good, but not broken in my opinion. I think this team spent a lot of its resources getting really good support, and I think that's fine. I think my only real gripe with this is I do think personally I would like to see a stronger Mon for Incineroar to support. I think that's where Incin is going to be doing its best work, is when it's supporting a really broken Pokemon, like something like a Golden Go or something like that, right? There's lots of things. I think it does okay next to Prim and Dragapult, and setting Trick Room up to get Rhyperior in is cool. So I think Instant does good work here for sure. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I do think I would like to see that. And I think honestly the damage output here, you have good spread moves, but I think in general the damage output might be a tiny bit low. Not that it doesn't have good damage output, but the other teams just have such broken damage output. And when I look at this team, I'm like, this damage output is good. Whereas I look at the last few, and I think this damage output is broken. So I think there's a difference there. But other than that, I mean, I think this team is great. Like you have Shield Dust Tailwind with Ribombi, so you're not getting faked out. You have the fastest speed tier in the game, other than Electrode, with Dragapult. Prim likes to be under Tailwind or Trick Room, so that's great. Great spread damage. I like this team overall. Take it, Toxic.
Um, yeah, I generally agree with what you're saying here. Uh, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, this. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's impossible to stop Trick Room, right? But like with Instant P2, it's like, oh my god, it's pretty much impossible to stop Trick Room. And then you have like Serena with it. Yeah, you're not gonna have a fun time trying to stop Trick Room here if you don't have a better Trick Room mode. And like, you're gonna be hard pressed to have a better Trick Room mode than Rhyperior Primarina, if I'm being honest. Oh, and Electros, that's also good.
I actually
Um,
I actually low key disagree. I wish there was something slower here personally.
I mean, slower. I mean, slower does kind of indicate better, I guess.
I
But
mean,
like,
to
I'm
a certain
talking
degree.
damage output right now.
Oh,
Like,
I got you. I'm not
in terms of
disagreeing.
damage output, it's very strong.
Yeah, I guess I was just saying like, and I forgot to say this when I was talking about it, but I feel like I wish that there was something that was hitting that base 30 benchmark because I think there's lots of teams that have that. Like in my opinion, like if M Boss plays against this team, for example, he's just gonna let Trick Room up and let Glastrier go crazy, right? Like, I mean, obviously, it's not that he doesn't have answers for that, right? But I do think the resources this team has to put into getting Trick Room up mean that a lot of your leads are going to be semi-passive, and I think that Yeet may struggle with that kind of thing to deal with something like that. If I guess that was what I'm saying. Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
If I'm being completely honest, I think the like you said, the damage output's a little bit lacking. I mean, I'd say the strongest mon on this team in terms of sheer output is between like Primarina or Rhyperior. Probably Rhyperior, if I'm being honest. Those two are definitely going to be carrying this team in terms of damage output. Not that Polt isn't strong with like Terra Ghost, Terra Blast, or that Ensign isn't strong, but those two those two generally struggle with damage output. Well, maybe not maybe not Polt, but Ensign definitely I think kind of struggles with that if you're running like the bulkier sets that most run. Uh, but I think Tailwind definitely makes up for that and allows Primarina and Ensign to be incorporated into that fast mode, allowing them to just outspeed stuff. And it's not like your Tailwind is like very easy to stop. That's like Shield Dust Tailwind. He doesn't even need to run Shield Dust. He has Queenly Majesty. So you could just like run whatever else you want to run on Ribombee. Like I think I think something else that hasn't been mentioned that this team I think really needs is a steel type. If you're drafting Dragapult, I think you need a good steel type to go with it. Honestly. And I think this team just general its only fairy resist is Swalot. That's and when you have a Dragapult team, that's not great. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
you
didn't
could
I hadn't
obviously
really thought about that. That's pretty rough.
you can always Terra out of that, but you can only do so much with Terra, you know. And naturally, I've noticed this because I do have a Flutter name. Um, but yeah, this team's only fairy resist being Swalot and like your quote unquote high tier being Dragapult kinda kinda blows. But outside of like sus damage output, maybe, and like a lack of a good fairy resist outside of Terra, I think this team is pretty strong. I think it could be argued to be the strongest team we've seen so far, but I'm also fine with putting it under Dez.
Ooh, dude, this is tough, man.
Yeah, I think this team is generally overall like way more. I think the power level and quality is way more balanced than Dep is, but the top half of Depiz's team is just so strong.
Oh man, dude, this is tricky. I'm leaning towards Yeet over Emboss.
Yeah, I think that's where I am
Or
right now.
I meant Depiz over Depiz.
Yeah, that's also fine. I mean, I'm probably either or. I think Yeet is fine because, like I said, I think Yeet the quality of Yeet's mons spread out at least it's just like so like every mon here outside of Swalot is of solid quality. Like all these mons, well, I guess Luminion as well. All these all these mons outside of his tier sixes are of pretty high quality. And I don't think
Agreed.
there's a. I think you could bring literally anything week to week. I
Mhm.
think this team is gonna have. I think Yeet's gonna have fun with this team.
Agreed.
Anyway.
All right, we move. Do you want to start with number 6, Toxic?
Oh, this scrub, this loser,
It's
this
not my fault. Y'all
loser,
let Iron Hands get to me at 6th pick.
this creep and loser. Look, this guy. I don't even want to say his name. Ironhand, Screamtail, McMortar, Hydrapple, Vaporeon, Paparaja, Lokix, Piloswine, Spectrier, Torntea, and Strudel. Right off the bat, I see something I'm not happy about. I see Iron Hands. Ugh. Right off the bat, Wake's team is probably over like most in the division. Just with that. But Iron Hands glazing aside, like there's this team just has very strong cores all around. Like I'm not I'm not he doesn't this team is like kinda like Mbosses where it doesn't have the most cohesive cores around. Like there's not like any like super like there's like a few, but it's not like all around like can all work together. But hold on, that didn't make any sense. What I'm trying to say is that I think this team doesn't have any like crazy obvious cores outside of like Iron Hand Tail, but everything on this team does work together very well. like I mentioned, Ironhead Screamtail are just amazing first two picks. Those two complement each other to near perfection. Uh, it's like how with Iron Hands or like Screams with Iron Hands or Trick Room or whatever you want to run on Screamtail. And that's just scratching the surface because this team also grabbed Follow Me. So now you can follow me Trick Room or fake out Trick Room if you want, or fake out next to Mac Mortar if you want. And Mac Mortar absorbs Will-O-Wisp, so you can't really Will-O-Wisp as easy as you usually would. And then you add on top of like really good Trick Room plus really good support, Iron Hands and Follow Me, with what I think is a very strong fast mode that just complements Screamtail very well. Spectrier and Torn. Uh, I think Spectrier and Torn. It's weird to call Spectrier and Torn a backbone, but with Iron Hands and Screamtail, they do serve as more of a backbone than like a front liar, in my personal opinion. Uh, I think Spectrier is a very good mon, and with Follow Me and Screamtail, I think Spectrier. This is probably one of the better teams I've seen with Spectrier. Uh, and then you have Torn with very good Tailwind. Uh, Everything else on this team doesn't seem fantastic, but it seems very serviceable, and they round out the chorus pretty well. I mean, Hydrapple completes the Trick Room mode. Well, it doesn't complete it. I haven't got to Kakaraja yet, but it complements Iron Hands very well defensively and offensively, being able to hit ground types and water types. Not that Iron Hands couldn't hit those actually. Um, and then you have Vaporeon back, like rounding out the defensive backbone, being able to just being one of the strongest late game ones you could possibly get in like the lower tiers. Being really good with Terra, and you have Follow Me with it, so Calm Mind is real. And then you actually round up the Trick Room mode with Caparaja. Since this team, I think one of the flaws of this team is Terra Fairy generally being very good into it. But Caparaja definitely makes that more difficult, rounding out Iron Hands' fairy weakness by pretty much being a very good fairy killer. Uh, I guess a flaw of this team is like outside of like most of the top tiers, like Low Kicks, Piloswine, and Strudel aren't very good. But like in this gen, you don't really need to run like you don't really need to run like low tiers and stuff that much. So I think that's probably fine. I mean, really, that was like kind of like I know that didn't I know what I was saying didn't make a lot of sense and it wasn't very collected. But what I'm trying to say is from top to bottom, from like fast mode to slow mode, this team is very strong throughout, and it's hard to find like a good flaw to exploit with this team overall. You take it, Wick. What do you think of this losers team?
So I'm really happy with how this team turned out. I was when the draft first ended, I was kind of unhappy with my mid tiers, but the more I looked at it, the more happy I got with them. I think my Firewater Grass core of Magmortar, Vaporeon, Hydrapple is insane personally. Um, I agree with your opinion on Piloswine and Strudel. I don't agree with your opinion on Lokix. I think Lokix is very good, and I think it's bringable in a lot of matchups.
We'll see.
Or or at least something that's able to be looked at in many weeks. Because my thing is like, I'm not even gonna look at Strudel in most weeks. Like, let's be real. Even though Strudel is basically the reason I took Strudel was I was like, okay, I need these two tier sixes, and this does something I don't have, prankster parting shot and stuff. Um, and that's it. Because I know I'm not going to use the tier sixes very much. That is like a technical negative to the team for sure. So that that's definitely an issue. But I just think I think my top tiers are so broken that I don't think it matters that much. Um,
Honestly,
but
I low key include Magmortar with those top tiers. I think Magmortar is really the glue that holds the team together.
yeah, I think Magmortar's going to be really good. I think my Trick Room. stuff with Kaparaja, Hydrapple, Iron Hands is fantastic. I think that yeah, I mean Vaporeon I think complements Iron Hands really well in the way that like it soaks up those special hits really really nicely. That Iron Hands, not that it hates to take them, but it doesn't like to take them as much as it likes to take physical hits. So I
Sometimes
think
you don't want to run AV. Sometimes you want to run Sword Stance.
right. And I think the major thing I have is like the bulk on this team is just kind of nuts. Um, like really, none of my mons are frail except Lokix and Shroodle. Like I would consider everything else at least average bulk or better. Um, like even Spectre and Tornadus, like 160, 80 is pretty serviceable, especially when I have redirection and screen and fast screens. Um, but yeah, I won't continue yapping about my team. Where would you put it? Would you put it above
I will put
Heats?
it. I think it's the best team we've seen so far.
I would agree with you.
I I I think there's a lot of competition later on in the draft,
Yeah.
but we haven't gotten there yet. But as of now, I think this team overall, it's very hard. I was definitely nitpicking there. It's very hard to find a flaw in this team. Fast mode to slow mode overall, it's very hard to find a flaw in this team. And that's what really kind of scares me. It's like how do you exploit a weakness here?
Hmm. All right. We will move to number 7, Flames team. He has Ogerpon, Wellspring, Archaludon, Cleavor, Como-O, Golurk, Florges, Hisuian Quillfish, Meditite, Thundurus, Incarnate, Arcanine, and Grumpig. So, this team is really interesting to me. Um, right off the bat, I think that this is a really man. I'm looking at it, and do you just like I this is oversimplifying for sure, but do you just bring Trick Room into this team and win?
Hmm, maybe.
Like the only Slowmon being base 55 Golurk, and Golurk is good. Don't get me wrong. Like high horsepower Poltergeist off base 124 attack is solid. I just I hadn't noticed this before, but I think this team really struggles with Trick Room. But
I'm curious what's good about it though.
yeah, sorry. I was getting there. I just hadn't thought of that and I just noticed it because I was looking at the speed tiers. What's good about it? What's good about it is I think that the core of like Ogerpon, Archaludon, and Como-O, like you have good redirection. Like I'm honestly being convinced that Ogerpon Wellspring is a top 10 mon in the format. Um
For
I think
real.
that mon is really really insane. And it's the only ogre pond that when it terras, it doesn't have any common weaknesses, except unless you have freeze dry. So like you can't, because the other ones like you can click rock moves into the fire one, you can click fighting and you can click fighting moves and steel moves into the rock one. You can click, I mean, any move that hits grass into the grass one. But this one doesn't share any weaknesses when it terastallizes. So that's really great. I think it's by far the best Ogerpon at using Terra. And I think like you don't need that offense boost from something like the Hearthflame form here because you want that bulk to take advantage of like Archaludon getting some more stamina procs off like weak spread moves or Como-O being able to get iron defenses or Clangorous souls up. Um, Thundurus, I think is just really, really great value in its tier. We moved that down, realizing that it was probably going to be one of the best mons in its tier, and I think it is. It's definitely one of the best tier twos. Does this team have fake out?
I don't
Meditite.
think it does.
It has Meditite.
Oh,
So that would be an issue I have. I think you need better fake out than Meditite, personally. I don't know if that's a hot take. It probably isn't. But what do you think, Toxic?
I think I think this team is pretty strong overall. Um, like you said, I think Ogrepon, similar to you, I think this Mon has very high potential to be one of the best ones in the format. But believe it or not, that's like a small part of the team. Um, I think this team has a very strong rain mode. I know it's weird to say that when it doesn't have a rain setter, but Thunderous with Prankster Rain Dance. This team loves rain. Uh our Caledon loves Rain Dance with next to Thunderous. Ogrepon definitely appreciates rain when you're getting hit with like Terra Water Ivy Cudgel that has a high chance to crit. I mean, this team's damage output is pretty insane overall when you add rain to the equation. I think Arcanine is good for the team, especially when you have Ogerpon. You know, you're not always going to be setting rain with Thundurus. And when you're not doing that, Arcanine is a very powerful tool for this team. Uh, I think Como next to Ogrepon is another good layer for the team. Although I do question it when you have Arcaludon as a dragon type, but I don't think they share a weakness. So it probably won't be an issue. I just generally don't like adding another type of Pokemon on there for like almost no reason. But it's fine. And then you add Cleavor to the equation. I mean, like, this team's damage output is actually pretty insane when you add rain to the equation. I think this team's damage output could be slept on at first glance. I think this team has very high damage output. That's not to say every other team we've seen so far doesn't have that, but I think this team could potentially be on the higher end by the end of this. Um, One flaw I could say about this team is that the low tiers aren't great. I mean, obviously, low tiers on any team aren't great, but I do feel like that like Golurk. I mean, Golurk is probably fine as like your only kind of sort of trick room counter, but Grumpig is your only trick room setter on a team this trick room week isn't fantastic. Um, and I guess Hisui and Quillfish is like serviceable as like a tier 5, I believe. Uh, It's just like not great low tiers. I mean, it's not. I don't expect great low tiers from every team, but I think it's nice to get good value, and I feel like this team definitely got most of its value from the high tiers. Outside of that, I mean, this team is very strong. I actually like this team a lot. Looking at it in PRs was definitely an eye opener. I definitely slept on this team in my original ranking. What do you think, Wick? Where do you think this goes?
Oh boy. Um, I think that it is. I think it's worse than M bosses. I don't know if it's better or worse than Toby's though.
I'd say that's actually a pretty hard call. I'd say it might be better, honestly. I think Rain just does for this team. And I know relying on it doesn't even rely on Rain either. Because you have like Arcanine and stuff.
Yeah, I am leaning towards putting it below Toby's because I think Toby's team has a little bit of a better damage output, and I think that it has more variance in what speed it wants to run at. Whereas this team is never ever running slow. And I just think, dude, I'm just really worried about the Trick Room matchup on this team personally. Um,
Yeah, I think that's fair. Putting it under Toby is definitely understandable. I can agree on that.
cool. We will throw flame between Toby and better than Kool-Aid. All right. Number 8. Do you want to start with this one?
Alright, so we have Raz with the Crystal Fall Cramorants, with Tornadus, Regidrago, Iron Treads, Brambleghast, the Dunsparce, Typhlosion, Darkspawn, Scraggy, Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Uxie, however you say it, and Pikachu. So right off the bat, pretty much the name of the game for this team is gonna be speed, 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 speed. I mean, starting off with Torn Urshifu first 2 picks, that automatically just like puts a target on your back. automatically you probably have like one of the strongest offensive cores you could possibly get in draft. I don't mean to glaze a lot, but like I think I'm probably right when I say that. Uh uh I mean, kind of like last team, this team really loves rain, specifically Urshifu. I mean, everybody knows about Torn Urshifu, especially if you've been on ladder. I mean, that's just a very strong core to start off with. Problem is now you're doubly weak to electric, but I think Raz rounds that off very well with three pretty good electric resists and Reggie Drago rounding off the not exactly a fast mode, but with Tornadus it might as well be a part of the fast mode. Um, Iron Treads working well with Reggie Drago and Urshifu Rabbit Trick. Bramblegas loving being next to Tornadus. The Dunsparce starting off a bit of a trick room mode kinda. Typhlosion adding layers onto that fast mode. And then Doxbun, you could Lava Plume next to it. Scraggy isn't real. But Yuxi rounding off that sort of Trick Room mode, you he's probably never setting Trick Room in front of somebody. But Yuxi's definitely good anti Trick Room. Imprison is decent. But Trick Room Reversal is the real thing I'm looking for in Yuxi. I think he's definitely gonna like that. And Pikachu rounds this team off with Lightning Rod and Fake Out. Um, so I think this team just has a very strong fast mode. I mean, this team is kind of similar to a lot of teams I've seen other people draft, where like there's just so much to prep for. Like when you like go into like the prep doc or whatever you used to prep, you just have like six different type of leads to to prep for, and they all revolve around Tornadus. A flaw I see in this team is that even though you have Yuxi and the Dunsparce, this team is still very weak to Trick Room, and 90% of the time, people are gonna be trying to set that on you no matter what. I think it's possible he could definitely just shut down Trick Room by killing the Trick Room setter, or just like reversing Trick Room. But I still fear Trick Room will be an issue for this team overall. Uh, I will also say with the team of this nature that's this fast and relies on blitzing so much, I wish there was a better fake out user. And the only fake out users being Scraggy and Pikachu really do suck. I think this team would benefit from a significantly better Trick Room, not Trick Room, a significantly better fake out user. Because I think generally fast teams definitely appreciate that fake out, enabling them to just blitz everything. But that's about it. Uh, what do you think? What do you think, Wick? I think this team's very strong. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this team is really good. I think it has a similar I have a similar gripe to it or with it as I did to Flames. I do think it's a little trick room weak. Um I do think that your kind of quote unquote anti Tiarmon being Yuxi is better than it being Grumpig, because I think it's much easier to bring Yuxi to a matchup most of the time than it is to bring Grumpig. That being said, the strong mode here is just absolutely fantastic. Like, um, yeah, I mean, Torn Rapid Strike is so good. Torn's Drago is so good. I maybe kind of sort of wish there was a better fairy counter here than Iron Treads. Um, but it's okay. It should be fine. I just don't know that Iron Treads is going to be strong enough. But outside of that, like, I think, yeah, offensively, I mean, this stuff just complements each other near perfectly. Um, I'm with you though. I do wish it had a real fake out Mon. Pikachu is like generally kind of real on this team, but it's still just not. It's just like it's just kind of
He's
not a
still
good
a
Pokemon.
Pikachu, dog.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not gonna be. I don't know how much you want to rely on that being your best fake out Mon. So I'd say the lack of fake out of like consistent real fake out, and the lack of like really solid trick room counterplay are definitely the two main gripes I have with this. But I mean the fast mode is just incredible. And there is potential for sure to just like straight up out damage Trick Room leads if you play your cards right here. So I think it's solid, but I do think there could be some issues with that. I also don't. Darkspun's just kind of not real to me, but it does okay here, I think. Um, where are we putting this toxic?
I okay. I would probably put this above. I would probably put this above Masons
I
for
agree.
sure.
Is it better than
I don't.
Depiz?
No, I don't
I
think it is. I think Depiz is I think Depiz has way more balance overall. I think if Raz maybe focused more on Trick Room instead of just going all fast, I think maybe he could like match up with Depiz a bit better. But I think Depiz currently ranks higher than him.
Yep, I'm with you. So I would put him between Raz and sorry, above Emboss, below Depiz. All right, number 9, Quick's team. Quick has Roaring Moon, Sinistra, Quaquavel, Sylveon, Hisuian Sneasel, Regice, Rhydon, Duosion, Heatran, Spidops, and Zapdos. So, I think the strength to this team is like it's just such a good bulky offense team. Like the combo of Roaring Moon, Heatran, Zapdos, like those things just cover each other like perfectly. Like that top offensive bulky core is just like real hard to match in my opinion. I think Quaquavel has a real use case here. I think sometimes Quaquavel's a little hard to get going because even though it kind of sets itself up, it's a little frail. But having good redirection from Sinistra and good tailwind from Roaring Moon with potential booster speed or just like a bulky Zapdos tailwind set, I think that's very real here. I do think um, the damage output I think is maybe a little lacking um, overall. I don't know how often you're bringing Regice, Rhydon, or Duosion. I kind of don't see any of those three coming very much. Not that they're bad Pokemon. I just like and that I'm necessarily like marking the team down for taking them because they're good value in their tiers for the most part. I'm just not so sure about like because I mean you're never bringing Rhydon and Duosion because like you want Eviolite on both probably. I guess you could do Sash Duosion, but I'm not sure. I think those three are going to be pretty hard to justify, but I think the rest of the team is very solid. Like even Spidops, I think has a use case here, because the Trick Room matchup's not. You have stuff like you have the bulk to pivot around Trick Room here, which is I think maybe the issue I had with Raz's team is it's not nearly as bulky as this, and so this team just naturally has a little bit of a kind of better time dealing with that, like pivoting around Trick Room and stalling the turns out. But I do think like Spidops is semi real kind of Trick Room counterplay, being as slow as it is and having the disruptive move pool it does, with like Circle Throw and Feint and Knock Off and First Impression and those kind of moves that are really solid. But what do you think, Toxic?
Um, I think I actually disagree with the damage output. I think the damage output is fine. I mean, the damage output is definitely focused in like Zapdos, Heatran, Roaring Moon, Sinistra, Pokeball, Sylveon. Really, that's the bread and butter of this team. I honestly think that's the only six you're gonna bring every week. But that could change week to week. I think the main flaw of this team is definitely the low tiers. I think this team generally got some of the worst low tier value than had got worse low tier value than everybody else, which is weird because this team did not draft the tier ones and tier twos first. Well, drafted Sinistra first, actually. Never mind. But I digress. I think the low tiers could be better. I think they're generally kind of hard to bring overall. But I think the core of Roaring Moon, Sinistra, Quaquaval, Heatran, and Zapdos, Sylveon, I think it's a very strong core. I just think teams that are similar to this, that are very top heavy, have stronger cores than that, generally. Uh, I will say I do. I also I also think the trickery mode on this team is a bit lackluster. I mean, Rhydon is solid when you're not getting hit by a special attack, and Regice is solid when you're not getting hit by a physical attack. So, I mean, it actually has better physical bulk than I thought it did. So, I still think the trickery mode is kind of lacking, but overall, I think this team is pretty strong. It has a very solid six, and it could potentially bring other stuff. Even though I think the other stuff kind of sucks a little bit outside of Sneasel. Where would you put it?
Yeah, no, I generally agree with what you said. I think
It might be better than Raz, but I'm also fine with putting it under Raz.
my gut reaction was above Raz, below Depes.
That's fine with me. I'm fine with either or. It's kind of a hard decision to make, but
All right, number 10. This is your
oh
team.
wow, it's
So
this scrub.
I think we switched who was talking first at some point, but that works because I can start with this one. So this is Toxic's team. He has Ursaluna Bronzong, Kilowatcho, Alolan Persian. Where have I seen that before? Alolan Executor,
Shut up.
Toxicroak, Samurott, Cryogonal, Blaze, Tauros. Man, that one's familiar too, huh?
Oh,
Dugtrio
shut
and
up.
Fluttermane.
Review the
um,
team.
he stole my whole flow. Anyway, um, I think this team is very, very, very solid. I think that I mean, and this is not trying to poke fun at you for doing a similar team to what I did in VDL, but we've seen this before and it worked, right? Like a very similar comp. We know this kind of comp works. Um, I think that the Trick Room mode here is obviously fantastic. Between Bronzong, Ursaluna, Alolan, Persian helping get that Trick Room up very consistently, and Alolan Executor is also pretty real under Trick Room. And then Fluttermane is just great on this fast mode with Kilo, and it doesn't really need Kilo support, but Tauros does like the Kilo support, so that's pretty handy. You do have Cryogonal to proc Anger Point on Tauros. If you're in the mood to be crazy and bring a slightly bad strat, you could do that. It is an option. Samurott is like, you know, it's a mid tier. It clicks water moves. That's about it, but it's fine. Toxicroak is a good kind of secondary fake out mon. Can do acid spray shenanigans for next to Flutter, I guess. If that speed interaction doesn't work out great, but you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I really like. I don't think there's too many weaknesses with this team. Like you have good answers for like you have quite a few ice weaknesses, but you have good answers to those with mainly Bronzong and Tauros, but Toxicroak works too. Um, the mid and low tier value to me on this team is okay. It's not the worst that we've seen. It's definitely not the best. Um, Dugtrio does give you like a pseudo kind of Perish Trap mode, even though Dugtrio is I think it might be hard to keep Dugtrio alive long enough to do Perish Trap stuff. And I think you're still probably, if you're clicking Perish Song, you're probably still just doing it in the end game once they only have 2 Pokemon left, which is very easy to do on this team with the mix-up potential it has. You can lead Trick Room one game and then just go like full out Scarf Tauros Flutter lead, get a double KO, and boom, you win. So I think that's really solid. Um, I think maybe one. Hmm. I think maybe one gripe I might have, and this is pretty minor. Like I said, I don't notice too many huge weaknesses or holes in this team. One minor gripe I might have is the setup time on this team is maybe a little slower than other teams in the div. Not that it's bad, but that might be something you face a little bit. Is like Flutter's good on turn one, but like a lot of other stuff on this team doesn't really threaten much damage on turn one. So if you want to have kind of an aggressive lead, you're kind of pigeonholing yourself into Flutter, which is fine because Flutter's good. but I guess that would be kind of my nitpick with this team. I really don't think it's that big of a problem. But do you want to talk about your team, Toxic? I'm sure you do.
Uh, I'm very happy with this team. I actually kind of disagree on the low tier thing. I think I generally got some of the better low tier value. I think my mid tiers could definitely be better. Like, yeah, kilowatt per person could definitely be like something way more overpowering. But they were very necessary pieces, you know? They're very necessary for the team. And I like them a lot. I think Samurott is a lot stronger than you're giving it credit for. You know, it's a hydro pump merchant, but it's my hydro pump merchant, and it's very strong with specs. Um, I think Toxicroak is pretty good here, and I think I generally got like some of the best tier sixes, probably the best, honestly. But you know, that's nothing to brag about. They're still tier sixes no matter what. It's not like they like actually add to the team. But I do think I think I got generally some of the best value, at least for my team, I'd say. Um, if you ask me, look, I usually don't feel this way about about my teams, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I think I have the best team in the division. But look, it could go either way between me, Wake, or like the next pick, and like maybe somebody else, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's
I
the best, but I'm fine with putting it under you or somebody else.
I um I think it might be best for the sake of this video to put you and I tied for number one because I strongly think mine is the best, and I think you strongly think yours is the best, and I don't know how much
Yeah,
people want to listen to us sit here and argue about it.
yeah, we're never
Um,
gonna come to a conclusion. Just make it a tie.
I'm sure people are gonna love this that you and I are making the vid and we're putting our own teams at numbers one and two, but
Hey,
deal
look,
with it. I
people
just
still watch dance PRs, and that's how his boiled down to.
real. Um, I was just gonna say, as long as I don't hear any complaints from Dan, I'm cool. Um, all right, number 11. We got four more. You want to take hunters?
Yes, sir. Okay. Uh, okay. Number 11. So Hunter has Jin Pao, Enamorous, Dust Noir, Milotic, Earthworm, Persian, Golem, Meganium, Dragonite, and Furnips Pupa. Excuse me. Right off the bat, I noticed that he has a Jin Pao in this team. Probably a top 3 Pokemon in this format. Um, Jin Pao, very strong. I don't need to tell you that, but I'm telling you that anyway. And then he proceeds to pair Dragonite with it. And I don't need to explain Chien-Pao Dragonite to you. That is next to like Torn Urshifu. That's probably like one of the best first two picks you could possibly get. Just like in VGC draft in general. That's a very strong 1-2 punch core. And I think that cannot be understated anymore. And on top of that, you know, that's a very strong fast core, but then you have something like Enamorous and Dusknoir for your Trick Room mode. And like Enamorous rounds off Enamorous covers Chien-Pao in Dragonite pretty much perfectly. I mean, those two are weak to fairy. Not like Enamorous resists fairy or anything, but it can eat like multiple fairy hits, generally. And it beats the fighting types that really want to hit Chien-Pao or just switches in on them. Dusknoir especially switches in on them, considering it's immune to most of them. Um, yeah, Dusknoir is also just generally a very broken Trick Room setter. I think that mount is very slept on as a Trick Room setter, and it works well with Chien-Pao, considering it's a physical attacker. Um, even outside of like the fast and slow modes, even outside of the fast and slow modes, I think Milotic is a good middle ground between the two. I think it's kind of weird to call Milotic a glue piece, but I do feel like when Hunter doesn't really have a good speed advantage either way. I think Milotic is going to be the one he relies on to keep a good game pace overall. Uh, I think Milotic is great. I think that's a mon. I think that's a mon he's definitely going to appreciate, especially when you have Dragonite and Shin Pao really not liking Intimidate and Milotic loving Intimidate. I think Earthworm, I'm going to be honest, the main reason why the main reason why I might be biased when it comes to Earthworm, but I think on this team it's pretty lame. Even with the Golem pick, I don't think Golem is good enough to really call Golem Earthworm a good Earthquake spam mode. I don't think I just don't think Earthworm is a good mon in general, but I especially don't think it's a good mon with Shin Pao. I just think he shares too many weaknesses with the current team. But it is a steel type and it resists fairy. So like that makes it decent. It's serviceable. Persian is definitely the Persian and Infernape are definitely the mons this team really needed though, which is why I think they're probably the glue pieces, if anything. I think this team loves fake out and having something like Persian that could just click fake out and like allowing Infernape to just spam close combat instead is really good. I think Infernape is great here. Outside of like those guys, I mean, Golem complements Enamorus pretty well, but I just don't think Golem is a very good mon. I could be proven wrong. But like even like with the Golem potentially being good, like Spupa and Meganium obviously aren't very real. So kind of like with the other teams, kind of like with the other top heavy teams, including mine. The low tiers aren't very good, but what can you expect? I think Hunter did well with what he has. I think he has very strong offensive modes. I mean, obviously, the flaw with this team is like probably like the mid tiers. I think he could have done better. I think if he trades Earthworm for a better Mon, he could get something that really complements his modes a lot better. I think something else I will say about this team is generally steel types are very strong into this team. Infernape is good, and Sacred Sword Chin Pal and like Earth Power Enamorus. Like he can still hit steel types, but I think he struggles with those a bit. Oh, and Golem, I guess. Um, Outside of that, this team is very strong, and I highly expect it to be in my top three. What do you think, Wake?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of your analysis there. I think this is probably the frailest team we've looked at so far. Um, Not that it's too frail. I think so. I mean, Raz's might be frailer, but it's between this one and Raz's for sure, right? Because like, right? I'm not tripping.
I mean, it's like Shin Pao, Persian, and Fernape. You're not wrong, but everything else seems decently bulky.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's like a problem necessarily. I was just pointing out that it is one of the frailer teams in the division. Um,
That's fair.
yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I think the fast end speed control is maybe a little bit iffy, but you have fast stuff like with Chen Pao and I think it'll be okay. But I do think that like Prankster Tailwind existing on a team may kind of force this team to go the Trick Room route, which is Trick Room mode is good, but I think that could be a potential issue. But yeah, I mean, I really don't have much to add there. I think this team is really, really good. And I think I can put it under the number one tied spot.
Yeah, I could probably put under that. I mean, I personally think Ahana's probably above Depes and under us, but I'm fine with him being tied with us. I think that's completely fine. This team is
No,
very strong.
I'm saying he's below us, yeah,
Oh, okay. I think you
above
said he's like
Yeet.
with us, like in a
No,
three-way tie.
no, I was saying below the tied spot, above Yeet.
Oh, okay.
All right, number. Wait, what? They were out of order. Okay. Number 12, Hippo. So he has Rillaboom, Entei, Glamora, Araquanid, Gardevoir, Pachirisu, Bellibolt, Leavanny, Galarian, Zapdos, Hydreigon, and Alolan Dugtrio. So, I think this team is very strange. Not to say it's bad. I think, again, as I said before, I think all these teams are good. Um, I think that the Firewater Grass core here is pretty nice. I do wish that maybe one of them was a special attacker between Rilla, Entei, and Araquanid, but two of them are immune to burn. One is immune to intimidate. I don't think that's like the worst problem still. I think that the damage output here is a little low. Like your best attacker is Araquanid, and that's fine. Araquanid is good. I personally would not want it to be my strong. I mean, I guess Meteor Beam Glamora is pretty insanely strong too, so that can count. And obviously, again, like Rilla and Entei are capable of great damage output. I'm a little bit not convinced by the speed control on this team. Your Trick Room setter being Gardevoir and your Tailwind setter being Gyarados doesn't feel good to me at all. Leavanny feels almost completely useless here. Bellibolt's I don't get Bellibolt here. It's not bad, but it's like I don't know. Really, honestly, I just think the speed tiers on this team are kind of bad. Um, like your slowest being 42 is not the worst, but your fastest being technically 110, but basically 100 because when are you bringing a Alolan Dugtrio? You know, um, I'm not convinced by that personally. Um, but I do think I mean the type cores here are really solid. Um, the speed tiers and the speed control like there's just no speed control here, man. Like I don't think Gardevoir is a reliable Trick Room setter enough to support Araquanid, and I don't think that Gyarados is a reliable enough Tailwind setter to support Entei and Glamora. Personally, like I mean I guess Hydreigon also gets Tailwind, but Gyarados is gonna be slightly better at doing that because it's a little faster. Um, I don't know. I just don't. I'm not a huge fan of this team. I'm not gonna lie. What do you think, Toxic?
I think this team definitely has its pros. Uh, I think this team has pretty good offense overall. I mean, Glamora pretty much started becoming honestly one of the strongest special attackers when it got Meteor Beam. And Gardevoir obviously could put up its going good fight, Hydreigon. And then you have like physical output from Rillaboom, Intake, Araquanid. I mean, I think the and Galarian Zapdos. I think the damage output here is actually pretty good overall. Um, I think a problem I have with this team is that I think the speed control options aren't great. Um, I think not to say that Galarian Zapdos and Hydreigon aren't good mons, but I think considering how important they are to this team's offense, I think you're gonna have trouble fitting in uh Tailwind plus Stab plus I mean I guess plus Protect. That's like 4 move slots, but like you might want coverage or something or whatever, you know? Like I think you would much rather prefer like a different sort of tailwind setter, a better tailwind setter, specifically because the current tailwind setters you have are like base 100, which isn't great. And like speaking of that, pretty much the fastest mon on your team is base 100. I mean, Alolan Trio is there, but I don't think that's a real mon. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. I don't think Alolan Trio was good.
It's not a hot
Um,
take.
Yeah, and then like you have Gardevoir here, which like that's like a solid Trick Room setter. But I've seen someone who only used Gardevoir as the Trick Room setter or Trick Room denial, and like I guess it's the Pachirisu it's solid, but I think I really wish this team's speed tiers were just better overall. That's kind of my main complaint. I think I wish the speed tiers were more spread out. I wish there was like a better Mon that was like of a higher speed tier in like the 120s or 130s. If this team had like a Paradox Mon that could hit that with speed booster, that'd be a different discussion. But it really doesn't. And yeah, the main issue I just have is speed tiers. Like I think if this team gets that figured out, I think I could see this team being among the mid tiers to like close to high tiers. Where would you put this team now?
I'm leaning towards the bottom right now.
Yeah.
And
I
again, like this is not saying the team is bad because it's not. I just don't think it's as good as Kool-Aids or Flames personally.
yeah. I think this team who is like the closest to the bottom right now? I think it's Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
Or is it Flame? I'd put this team probably lower than Kool-Aid's, but I could go either or, above or below.
Yeah, I just think Kool-Aid's speed control is a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to start with Sebzi's team?
Yes, final two, thank God. Um, so he Zebzi, Mexico City Luchadors, Gouging Fire, Anamorous, Gothitelle, Basculegion Female, Minxiao, Donphan, Fungus, Masquerain, Whimsicott, Magnezon, Oikalon. So right off the bat, I think he has an extremely strong fast mode. Whimsicott is probably I think it's fair to say that it's probably the best Tailwind setter you can get, just like overall. I feel like that's not a horrible take. I mean, it's someone that sits Tailwind, by the way. It's someone that sits Tailwind. It's probably like close to the best you can get.
It's definitely either that or Tornadus.
Yeah. Uh, Gouging Fire and Amorous is a very strong offensive mode, especially both coupled as your fast mode. People are going to be hard pressed to find them on that resist their stabs overall. Um, Whimsicott, Gouging Fire, and Amorous, very strong fast mode, and then you could like put Basculegion Female and Minchow with it, and like maybe even Dawnfan as well, and that works very well. Um, this team has a bit of a trick room mode with Gothitelle, Dawnfan, Fungus. I think it could be significantly better, but Gothitelle's a fantastic trick room setter, and it can also function as just not a trick room setter, and just like a good mon in general. Fungus is decent redirection. I think it's a very solid mon. Minchow works well as a decent glue piece. Minchow works well as a pretty good glue piece with fake out working well for both modes. Uh, and then you have Magnezone at the bottom that I kind of forgot that works well with both modes. The problem I'm having with this team is I think the type cohesion kind of sucks overall. I think getting Anamorous and Whimsicott isn't a great decision. I don't think it's horrible, but I think you could do significantly better. Uh, I think it's fine to get Anamorous Whimsicott since Whimsicott isn't the strongest fairy type. But I think getting Anamorous as your like top tier offensive fairy might not be great, but I think it's still fine. Uh, I yeah, this team is pretty good. I mean, I think I think the speed couldn't. I think hmm, it's kind. I think the general like natural speed tiers could be a little bit better, but I think it's serviceable, especially when you have like Whimsicott and Gothitelle being your facilitators. I think it's probably fine. Good damage output, pretty good speed control, sus type cohesion overall. But I think overall this is a pretty good team. Where would you put it?
I haven't talked about it yet. I I can agree with most of what you said. I am personally not opposed to the Enamorous and Whimsicott being here together, but I understand. I think that generally speaking, the damage output here is solid. I think the the Fungus really carries the Trick Room matchup here, and I'm
Agreed.
it could be Gothitel's a good good at like coming in and reversing it. So I guess it's okay. Um, the low tiers here, Masquerain and Oikalone. Masquerain is fine. You never like you have Tailwind elsewhere. Um, on 2 mons that are better at setting it with Whimsicott and Enamorus. But the Intimidate, it's nice to have. It's not useless here. Oikalone, it does some stuff, I guess. But yeah, honestly, overall, like I think this team is solid. I don't think it's like it doesn't feel super broken to me, um, but it does feel good. I'm kind
I
of
probably put this team right under Toby's.
I could see it above.
I could see it above too, but I think Toby's has way better type cohesion,
I'm with
and
you.
I think his fast mode is better. Well, actually, no, Sebzi's fast mode is probably better, but I think his slow mode definitely makes up for it. And Toby's fast mode is just that strong. I
Hmm.
mean, it's decently strong. I
Yeah,
put
no,
it
I'm with
like
you.
right under Toby. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last team, Ollie. He has Golden Go, Clefairy, Gyarados, Hitmontop, Mandibuzz, Exeggutor, Ursaring, Porygon, Annihilate, Blaziken, and Hisuian Sliggoo. So, this to me is another team where the good stuff is insane and the bad stuff is very bad, in my opinion. We'll start with the good stuff, at least the stuff I perceive as the good stuff. Golden Go Clefairy, broken. Annihilate Clefairy, broken. Blaziken Clefairy, broken. Those 3 mons next to Clefairy, plus Gyarados can Dragon Dance too. Like, why not? You have him on top for Intimidate, so you can use Gyarados as a more offensive mon if you want. Broken. Clefairy is just like, in my opinion, the biggest glue piece here. I think between Clefairy and Hitmontop, the amount of enabling you can do on this team is just unreal. Um, and I think that the type coverage here, like your Firewater Grass, is decent. You don't have a full fantasy core, but in my opinion, if you're gonna be missing Hisuian's okay. Technically, you have a fantasy core. Not sure how much I would count Hisuian Sliggoo, but
Hisuian Sliggoo Clefairy, bro.
yeah. But that is a very very passive lead. Not sure how I feel
It was
about
a
that.
joke, brother.
Oh, okay. Hey. I mean, it could do something. Like, you're guaranteed to get iron defenses off, but also you're doing no damage. Anyway, um, I do think if you're going to be missing a type from the fantasy core, I think Dragon is usually a pretty, like, quote-unquote acceptable type to be missing. I do think there's some... Ollie... all of Ollie's teams, at least when I'm looking at them, always have way more type overlap than I personally care for. Some of it's okay here. Like, I think Golden Go Annihilate, it's fine because the only weakness they share is Ghost. Granted, your Ghost answers here are not. Well, you have Golden Go. Never mind. Ghost hits Ghost. That's always a weird. That's always a weird type dynamic to me. But you do have good options for Ghost types, especially given that you can redirect the Ghost types into Clefairy and then hit them with the Ghost type. So that's fine. Ignore what I just was going for there. However, I do think the 2 flying types is also not the worst, but it's not great. The 3 fighting types is a little rough to me. Golden Go, covers the common fairy weakness between Hitmontop and Ape, and the common psychic weakness between all 3 decently well. It does hit all of those, plus Annihilate can, hit Ghost types as well with Rage Fist. I'm still not super convinced that all 3 of those need to be here, even though I do like what they're all doing here. It's kind of it's kind of a bit of a conundrum to me. But in general, the main weakness I see with this team is, my lord, those speed tiers are trash. No offense, but man, your fastest mon being 90 is not great. And your fast speed control is Mandibuzz. That's about it. I mean, Blaziken gets speed boosts, so that's fine. And you can realistically get Blaziken set up in this team for sure with Clefairy and Hitmontop support. But man, that that these speed tiers are not great. Clefairy does help your Trick Room matchup, being able to after you stuff under Trick Room, but even then, I don't think the Trick Room matchup is particularly amazing here. Well, I guess your game plan against Trick Room with this team is probably just going to be lead Clefairy, set something up next to it, and then just like bulk it out and kill stuff with Rage Fist and make it rain anyway. So that it's probably okay. But the speed tiers, I really can't get past the speed tiers. Personally, I just need a team to be, not like for myself, but when I'm evaluating teams, I just need a team to be faster than this personally. But what do you think, Toxic?
Here's the thing. Okay? I'm looking at this team, right? I'm looking at this team. This team has a similar power level to Raz, or look, has similar pros to Raz. Where like when you're prepping for this team would be horrible. Intimidate, two intimidate mons, very good fake out. And then you have to like figure out how you're gonna find a lead that can deal with Goldingo Clefairy, Blaziken Clefairy, Annihilate Clefairy, Gyarados Clefairy, Hitmontop plus something. I mean, the lead matchup into this team, it's gonna be terrible to prep for. I'm gonna hate it, even though I don't fight this team. It's gonna be terrible to prep against this team. But outside of that, I think this team fumbled pretty hard. I think I think Goldingo, at least based on how I've used it and how many others have used it, I think Goldingo necessitates like a faster Tailwind user than Mandibuzz, or like at least a fast Icy Winder or something. But you don't have a single thing over base 100, so that's not gonna work. You don't have a single fast Icy Wind, a single fast Tailwind, a single fast anything. You don't have speed, and Goldingo's gonna suffer from that. Uh, and so is everything else. I think Blaziken with speed boost is definitely gonna be probably fun. Dragon Edge Gyarados will probably be fun, I guess. Um, Annihilate isn't generally super care for speed control, but you know, it might want it every now and then. It can't bulk through everything in the universe. Um, I think uh, I think this team just generally fumbled with the speed aspect of things. I think it could have done significantly better. And because of the general lack of speed, if this team doesn't like have perfect intimidate pivoting and Clefairy doesn't survive through every single turn on Earth, then I think this team is gonna struggle hard. Because I think Clefairy really does allow everything to be enabled and give them a chance to be strong. But like without Clefairy, I think this team crumbles. I it has a similar issue to Kool-Aid, where just without that follow me user, this team is gonna crumble. Except I'd probably say this team might be worse. Because at least Kool-Aid's team has like a decent amount of speed or some speed control to like facilitate some sort of mode in the back that can actually outspeed you and beat you. But this team can't even do that. I know it sounds like I'm mean on this, like very harsh on this team. It's very strong. And if I had to play against it, I'd hate prepping against it. But I think this team could have been so much better. Uh,
Yeah, no,
yeah, those are my
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you for sure. And the unfortunate truth is, Clefairy with Eviolite can be bulky, but unfortunately, like I'm thinking about most of these teams, I think most of these teams can two shot it or like kill it with a double up with like very little difficulty. Um, so yeah, I think it's gonna be hard, but I think Ollie can totally do it. But I do think the team is not super great. Do we put it? Where are
I
we
think it's
feeling?
above Hippo, but I think it's probably below Kool-Aid
I'm
for me.
down for that. Yeah.
So what's the final ranking, boss?
All right. So we end up with 14 is Hippo, number 13 is Ollie, number 12 is Kool-Aid, 11 is Flame, 10 is Sebzi, 9 is Toby, 8 is M-Boss, 7 is Raz, 6 is Quick, 5 is Depiz, 4 is Yeet, 3 is Hunter, and 1 and 2 are the two of us. Feel free, for anyone watching, feel free to discuss if you guys want to decide if me or Toxic's team is better. If you
Or
agree that
if you
ours-
think your team is better than ours.
yeah, let us know regardless. I just personally don't think it's going to be worth anyone's time for us to sit here and argue about it because I think we're both pretty convinced
I'm
that our
pretty
team
adamant.
is better. Yeah.
I'm more
so,
adamant than I've ever been about this.
I do tend to say my teams are very, very, very good in PRs, but I'm pretty confident as well. So we're not going to argue about this. Thank you to everyone who watched. I know this ended up at almost 2 hours, but that's pretty normal. So thank you, Toxic, for being on this with me. We had wanted to have Hunter, but work
problem.
life, you know how it is. But thanks for watching, everybody. I'm super excited for this season, and I will see you guys in Gyarados PRs later this week. Thanks for watching.